best at projecting my voice. But either way, I want us to go ahead and move on to our next presentation since we are a little bit behind. Um, just so you guys know, there is still, looks like there's still stuff from breakfast left over there. You're welcome to get it, but we do expect lunch around noon. So just kind of a heads up, that'll be after Michelle's presentation. Is everybody feeling okay with the air? Does it feel like it's cooling down enough? It's not too cold for anybody? No? Okay. So we'll leave it at that. And then, is there anything else I was supposed to? Did everybody go ahead and scan that? Once again, we'd like for everybody to complete it, but if you need your CEUs, this is the only way for us to be sure that you've done your stuff. Last thing, if anybody does have to leave early on us, please just stop back at that same table to sign out, just so that way we can keep track of who stayed throughout the day. Did anybody have any questions before we get started? No? Let me get your presentation, Michelle. Would you like to go ahead and maybe introduce yourself?
Sure.
I made Eric do the same, so.
No problem. Good morning, everybody. My name is Michelle Aldana, and I am the statewide director of forensic services with the New Mexico Sexual Assault Programs. Uh, Bear with me. I think I'm headed towards a cold, so I'm going to take lots of water breaks. Just so you know, I will try my best to speak up as much as possible. If you cannot hear me, please let me know, and I will use the mic if I have to. So it's so nice to be here. This training well, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I was part of a children's advocacy center. I was a forensic interviewer and then a director for the past 27 years. And then moved on to the coalition to work with all of the CACs in the state to provide training and technical assistance for the past almost 3 years. At the end of this month, it will be 3 years. So I have the wonderful opportunity to work with all of the children's advocacy centers versus just mine. So it's really helped me understand how things work in different parts of the state and different needs that different areas of the state need. So it's been very eye-opening. This presentation today is on recantation. And there's a clicker? Oh, yes. Okay. Is on recantation. Can I just get a show of hands? It sounds like everybody's familiar with what a forensic interview is. Yes? Is there anybody that doesn't? Okay, so we're in good shape. So we'll be talking a lot about centers and about children being in centers and families working with advocates in centers and what that can look like to help against recantation, which is actually very common. And so it's something that we should expect in many ways. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. So let's start with you guys. I want you to think about this is my perspective. I think it is very helpful when we can be in a training and we can put ourselves in that position, right? If we can put ourselves in the position of a victim, of a survivor, to really try to think about what does that feel like, what does that look like. In this case, I want you to think about what it was like for you as a child. And just general stuff like what were you like as a child, and this is participatory, so everybody jump in, and also please ask questions if you have questions. Please don't wait till the end. So let's think about it. What were you like when you were 8 or 9? Just raise your hands. I'll give you a minute to think about it. Takes a while for some of us to think about what it was like when you were 8 or 9. What grade were you in when you're 8 or 9? Just jump in. Curious. Okay. Curious. What grade are you in when you're 8 or let's go with 8? Third grade. Okay, good. What else?
You wanted to please your parents. Like you wanted to get their approval. You wanted to do right.
You wanted to make them proud. Yeah, okay. What else? Yes. Wild. Were you wild? You got all the wildness out of you back then, huh? What did that mean? What wild, like what? It's good to remember you. Okay, so you can be active, right? You can be curious. What else? What were you like?
in their business and stuff, and this will age me, I know, but I would, when people would talk, I'd be like, well, what do you think of JR killing his family? I was always, wanting to be in the adult conversation as a grown up.
Oh God, you crack me up now because I know that reference. So that's so funny. So past soap opera for those of you who are too young to understand. So you want it to be like you want it to be grown up. Yeah, when you're 8, you want to be grown up, right? You want to be independent. What other ways? Some of you guys, what were you like?
I was shy and scared and isolated.
Okay. Yeah, I wondered where that was going to come up. Some kids are shy, right? Just kind of taking the world in, trying to figure it out. Some are wild, like Rosie back there.
My generation was very adventurous
Uh-huh.
on our own.
And on that's a good way to put it. Yes, on your own. Out in the streets, riding bikes. Yeah. Waiting for the street lights to come on. Yeah. Okay. Did you like school when you were 8? Yes. Usually you like school, right? Then when you're 8, you got friends. You get to hang out with your friends and be wild, be adventurous, checking things out. How did you get to school? Bus. Okay. Any other ways? Walked. Okay. Did you take your lunch? Did you eat in the cafeteria? Took your lunch? Who liked the pizza in the cafeteria? And the chocolate milk. Why did it just taste different back then, huh? It was just something different about it. I want you just to think about what it was like when you were that age. What did it feel like? Try to remember what that was like so that we can move through this presentation and think about what it's like if you were in this position or you're working with a child and a family in this position and what it might be like. It's important for us to try and figure out how to really be present for kids and families in a way that we can meet them where they're at and really take a minute to understand what that might be like and what that feeling might be for them at the time when we're dealing with all of this disclosure, usually, and then if a recantation comes, what do you do with that? So, okay, let's move through this. So, recantation, I'm just going to read this so we're all on the same page, is a public denial of a previously stated experience. When a victim decides to change or retract their statement, it's called recanting. This can occur at any point in the case and often occurs after the incident in an attempt to get the charges dropped and make it all go away. So those of you who are investigators who have been a part of a case where a child has recanted. There's a few of you. Okay. So in order to understand recantation, we first need to understand the process of disclosure. Has anybody heard of the process of disclosure by chance? I know some CAC people back there have heard it. So the process of disclosure is basically this. If you look on the left-hand side, that's when kids are saying things like, Mom, I don't want to go to Grandpa's house. Mom, don't leave me alone with my brother. Mom, Grandma's really mean to me. Let me just go with you to the store. And then as it flips up, straight up is what is called the disclosure phase, when kids are actively disclosing when something is happening to them. And then on the flip side is when kids start falling off and saying things like, well, never mind, or that didn't happen, or, I didn't mean that. I didn't mean to say that. That's when it's really hard to continue in an investigation with a child. So what we want to do is to really get them at the part where they are flipping up into that active disclosure and try to get them in for a forensic interview as soon as possible. I heard somebody say, and I had a question about the state. Somebody said you have a day of state training, and they ask, is it law enforcement? Is that what you said? Tell me that again.
In the state curriculum, when you're teaching the new cadets in the academy that are going to become police officers,
Uh-huh.
they are instructed to interview children.
For state police?
No, just
Just state curriculum. Okay, gotcha. Thank you. I just appreciate the clarification. It's good to know because what you're going to hear from me is don't interview kids, right? If you're on scene with a kid, and this is kind of off topic, what we want for you to do that supports the forensic interview is really engage in a minimal facts interview, and that's a whole other training. But it really is some basic information that you might ask the child, but really you get from the supportive parent, the non-offending parent. So that minimal facts interview is something that you're going to interview the parent in regards to what the child has said, not interview the child directly. So if anybody has questions about that, I can talk about that later. So here's a process of disclosure. Let's first start here. Why do you think that kids delay in their disclosure?
Because they don't have like, they can't, how do I say it? It has to be explained to them, hey, daddy's gonna go to jail if what you said was bad. And then, because as a kid, you know, you're just like telling the truth. You're
Right.
like brutally honest.
Right.
And they have to take a minute to be like, okay, wait, let me think about it. It takes them a minute to think, and it takes them a minute to process. To say, oh, hey, I guess this is, even though what I said was right, I guess what I'm doing is wrong. So kind of, it's like a confusing moment for them.
It sure can be, yeah. And they may be threatened, right? With, this person might go to jail if you say this. Why are you saying this? Why are you lying about this? Why else might children? Not all kids have a safe person. Very true. Very true. Yeah, and I always say this, maybe people have heard me say this before. I'm always so amazed when people in the audience say that because I think that's such a deep dynamic of, but that really is true. Kids just may not understand that something is wrong, right? And you learn that something is wrong by being around your peers, by being exposed to other environments, to going to your friend's house and you're like, oh, hey, your dad doesn't kiss you with his tongue. Or, so it really is a process of learning that something is wrong. You just think that that's what happens in your home and that's right. I think you were going to say something.
Oh, I was going to say, oftentimes the kids are in a fight or flight mode, and they're just trying to survive what's going on. So the last thing on their mind is telling someone what happened.
Right, right. They may be worried about other things, right? Sometimes they're worried about food, some of the basic needs, being safe, that they're not worried about being touched. They're worried about their basic needs. Why else might kids just delay in their disclosure? Scared that they won't be believed. Okay. What else? Embarrassed. Who said that? Embarrassed. Okay. Embarrassed. Yes. They feel guilty for what? That they're the cause for it. Yeah. That's a very interesting dynamic when children feel like it's their responsibility and they were bad in some way, therefore this is happening to them. Yeah. Right. Right.
Like, why do I feel this way? But it's like, oh, why? The child's like, well, why do I feel this way? It's not right. Why do I not feel right? This is wrong.
Right. Or it can feel good in some way, right? You can get attention. Your body is made to feel good by being touched. So that can be a whole other level of confusion for children. Yeah. Let's see if we got them all. Threats or harm, fear of being removed from their home, right? Families are going to tell their child, you better not say anything or CYB is going to take you away and then you'll never see us again. And then you'll get, water and crackers for the rest of your life. Fear of not being believed, shame or guilt. They don't want to get the person in trouble and they may not understand that the abuse is wrong. Good job. So this is a really important guideline that I always like to provide for audiences that I work with, because I think it really just captures what we need when we think about the disclosure process. And I can provide this for any one of you, so just let me know. it's really important to understand developmentally what kids are able and not able to do. So if you look on the left hand side, there's the age, so 3, 4, 5, 6. If you look up top, there's a who, what, where, when, why, basically, the elements of a crime. And so if you look at a 3-year-old, they're going to be able to tell you who did it and what happened. So daddy touched my pee-pee. That's a who and a what, right? If what's the main thing that we need for a criminal investigation? Of course, we need a child to be disclosing and for us to understand all of that, but we need a timeline to figure out when something happened, right? And if we look at this, when we think about number of times or time in any sense, kids aren't gaining that ability until about 7 or 8. And that looks really different because it can be like a school year, summer, fall, spring break. Kids' timeline is very different. It is not like a grown up timeline, right? When we understand days and dates and time of the day, all of those things that go with any type of time sequence. But time is a very difficult concept for kids. So we're never going to ask kids like, when did that happen? Because they're not going to be able to provide us accurate information. In the forensic interview, interviewers are trained to ask questions in a way that get the most information in regards to all of these elements, if it's possible. Certainly, we're not going to ask a 3-year-old, like, how many times did this happen? We may ask them, did it happen one time or more? We may ask them, did it happen in one room or more? But within the forensic interview, we really want to be very cautious to be able to get the most accurate information that you need. And this is one of the things that we will follow to ensure that we're really getting the information accurately. Any questions about this? Does that make sense about time for you guys? Because this is a big concept and we really want to be able to get the information that you need in the most accurate way. So why would a child recant? Okay, threatened. Yes. Right. You want it all just to go away, right? What else? They're with the abuser. Okay. Who said that? Oh, rewarded for not talking. Okay. Yeah, yeah, so true. Anything else? The less attention they get, the better. They just want that everything to go away, right? Yeah. Okay. Anything else that you can think of? Yeah, feel like they're not being believed. They don't want to come into CYF custody. CYFD gets a bad rap, right? And
the reason the kid disclosed in the first place is not for us to prosecute, and so they need to stop the rest of it, which is what they want.
right. I have a quote in here about that. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, the kids are not thinking, oh, I want this person to go to jail. Oh, I can't wait till I'm on the stand, right? Can't wait till we, prosecute him and send him away. That's not the point. The point is much different from a child's perspective, right? So let's see. Family pressure, disbelief, too many questions. Uncomfortable to talk about abuse. The child loves the accused. No family support, guilt for disclosing, breaking up the family, and the accused is arrested and detained, just like what you talked about. Are any of those surprising? No. So, segue, thank you so much. I still love my dad. I didn't want him to get into trouble. I just wanted him to stop. This was something that a little girl told me within a forensic interview. She loved him. And that can be very difficult, right? When you think about like a lay person just who doesn't do this work, to understand that. You would think, well, hey, like if your dad's been raping you, you would hate him, right? Doesn't work that way. And it's important for us to remember that. It's important for us to understand that children still love their abuser. And there may be some who don't, right? Who are conflicted, who do, who don't, who work a lifetime to figure that all out. But when you're a child and something like this has happened to you and you're trying to make sense of it, like he said, you're not disclosing because you want them to lock him up. You're disclosing because you want it to stop. And that's a very different dynamic. So now what? You have a kid, you're investigating a case, they've disclosed, and now they've recanted. What do? Investigators, what do? Very difficult reality, huh? Yeah. But if we really want to do our due diligence with a case where a child has disclosed, let's think about what we're going to do next. How are we going to do right by this child and this family, right? So were you lying then or are you lying now? I'm sure some of you have heard that. Some of you have felt that. Some of you have thought that. It's understandable. But if we take a minute to think about what it's like to be 8 years old and possibly in this kind of position, what does that feel like? You just want it all to go away. So just a couple of, I want to run through a couple of like stats. And sexually abused children have been known to deny, minimize, forget, and confuse, but rarely do they lie. So if children are going to disclose about something, say they're going to make up a lie about something, I find it very difficult, and I've done probably close to 8,000 interviews. I find it very difficult that kids would lie about being touched. It happens. I'm not saying it does not happen. But if you're going to lie about something, why wouldn't you lie about something different? Like, hey, he hit me, versus somebody touched my private parts. Because you're going to be asked questions, and the last thing you want to do is answer questions about your body, about your private parts. So something to think about. So kids have been known to deny, minimize, forget, and confuse. So fabricated sexual abuse reports constitute 1 to 4% of all cases. Very small number that we can see have been falsely reported. It's estimated that 60 to 70% of adults do not disclose their abuse as children. So 60 to 70%. If we had a lineup of 10 people and of 10 adults, let's say, 7 of them would not have disclosed their childhood abuse. We should be concerned with the percentage of children who never disclose versus the number of false accusations. So when we look at those stats, we need to worry about people who are not disclosing, children who are not disclosing, adults who are not disclosing. And we know that. I'm sure plenty of us know people that into their adulthood have said, you know, I've never told anybody this, but this happened to me when I was a child. So we need to be concerned with people and children who have not disclosed, not the percentage of kids that are lying. So based on research by Tom Lyon, he is a famous researcher in the field. Over 20% of children who disclose sexual abuse later recant and deny their allegations. These recantations are more common in younger children, those abused by household members, and those with unsupportive mothers. So like, I think you said, you know, or I'm not sure who said about having a safe person, how significant that is, right?
So they can't have a safe person.
Say that again.
They may isolate them so they don't have a safe person.
Yeah.
They're only around
Mhm. So, like in this case, we see that supportive mothers are significant in helping children not recant, not take it back. So, the dynamics of recantation, the closer the relationship, the longer it takes to disclose. So, what would that look like? If I'm a child and my dad was abusing me, the closer that relationship versus if I'm a child and a family friend was abusing me. The relationship impacts the length of time that it takes for children to disclose. Somebody who is closer to you, the longer it takes to disclose. The longer the abuse has occurred, the longer it takes to disclose. So if this has been going on, if it happens one time and you have not disclosed after that one time, and then it just goes on, then the harder it's going to be for you to disclose. Why do you think that is? Uh-huh. Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, that could be. Sure.
Someone's gonna ask the question, why didn't you say it?
Exactly. Exactly.
Or the abuser might say, well, you let me do it before, what's different now?
Mm-hmm. Or you feel to yourself, I let him do this, him or her. I refer to him just because it's easier. We all know that there are female abusers as well. But you can say to yourself, I didn't disclose after the first time. I didn't tell somebody. So therefore, I'm going to be questioned. And therefore, it must be my fault that I let it go on for so long. Why didn't I tell the first time? Right? And why don't kids tell the first time? You think it won't happen again. Yeah. What else? Did you? Anybody? Yeah. Say.
Sometimes, depending what it is, the child might think that's the way it's supposed to be.
Right. It's just normal in your home, right? What else? Somebody said something back here.
Oh, I have to just not sure of what that touch was or whatever was.
It could feel, yeah, confusing, right? Like, well, maybe it was an accident. Maybe it was my imagination.
I had a kid where the victim was getting paid money,
Uh huh.
so she thought she was a prostitute, so she didn't want to
Oh,
talk about it.
how old was she?
She was, the time she was 5 to 12.
Oh my goodness. Oh, what kids do in their brains, right? To understand all of this.
If there's more than one kid, some kids may want to have to do that so that it happens to their siblings.
So true. So true. Especially if you have a close relationship with your sibling, right? With your siblings, and you'll take it for them so that they don't get abused. Yes, good points. Yeah. The closer the relationship, the higher likelihood of recantation. So the closer you are to that person who's abused you, the more likelihood there is for a child to recant. So if it's a stranger that does this to you, the likelihood of recantation is slim because it's a stranger. But if it's your father, that is increased. So here's how we can assess for the possibility of recantation. So what's the family's initial reaction to the disclosure? Are they supportive? Are they upset? How have you seen families be? Deny, okay. Support the abuser, yeah. I'm sure we've all seen that. Sweep it under the rug kind of thing. Yeah, yeah. So we want to really pay attention to what's the family's initial reaction. Are they cooperative? Are they supportive? Are they acting that way, but maybe you sense that something else is going on? Are they willing to keep the child safe? What are their reactions to the accused? Are they saying things like, not my heat though? Who hears that? you know, that can't happen. He would never do that. Or are we dealing with a family that's like, what is happening? I need to figure this out. I need to support my child. Let's see what's happening here versus this could have never happened. And what are their main concerns with the situation? What's going to happen to their child versus what's going to happen to the accused? That's a big difference, right? If they're mainly concerned about their child, then okay, here we go. But if they're mainly concerned about the accused, that's a whole different dynamic that we need to pay attention to. And this is all in the process of assessing the possibility of recantation for that child. So what happened, excuse me, after the forensic interview? Was the child or the accused removed from the home? What do we see most often? The child gets removed usually, right? And what kind of message does that send to that child? They think that they've done something wrong, that they're being punished. Any other thoughts? I always found it fascinating when, and I understand, I guess in some ways, the need to remove children or a child to move that child to a safe place. But there's still that underlying message of, I'm being punished for what I've said. So why is the accused not, if the accused is a grown-up, then why is the accused not being moved or asked to leave the home? And they have means to be able to do that. The child does not have means to be able to say, hey, well, I'll just go stay at a hotel while we figure this all out for the weekend. So we need to pay attention to that. What kind of message are we sending to the child? Does the child feel alone after disclosure, responsible for the breakup of the family? Is the child now concerned with the safety and well-being of the family and or the accused? Did the child see the accused handcuffed and thrown into a police car? Like, what are their feelings now when they're trying to figure out what the situation is and what they're going to do with the information that they've shared? Are they going to continue with this? Are they going to hope that this all goes away? So ways to minimize recantation. The child or the accused is removed from the home post-disclosure, which, like we've talked about, it is better for the accused to be removed from the home versus the child. But this is going to really help us understand how to try to minimize recantation. How do we keep the child safe? How do we make the accused move on out of the home if that's what needs to happen at this point? Be aware of relationships between siblings. What do you guys think that means? Yeah, it's really important to pay attention to that because siblings can be like, why are you talking about dad like that? He never did anything like that to me, right? And then a kid's feeling like, this is my brother that I rely on, that is supportive to me, and now he doesn't believe me. And so why am I worried about this? Let me just let it go, right? Yeah, I think that we don't pay attention to that enough. What is happening between siblings? Are they supportive of one another? Should they be together? Should they not be together? How do we look at that to make sure that we are trying to minimize recantation? Surround the child with supportive family members. Is it best to remove that child from that home and put them with grandparents because grandparents are supportive of them? Does that send a better message to them? Could be, right? There's always a possibility. And so I think really the point of all of this is, are we looking at the whole picture? If we need to remove the child from the home, are we putting them with family members that are supportive, that are going to keep them isolated in some way from everything that might be happening? Did the child engage in therapy with a non-offending caregiver? That's especially helpful, but especially the child. Has a child started, excuse me, therapy? Early and ongoing contact with the case team. Well, I know that we're all busy, and this is a hard one. But how do we maintain contact with that non-offending caregiver and that child in a way that lets them feel supportive and heard and not lost in the system, right? And one of the ways I think that we can really pay attention to that is utilizing our CAC advocate. So, I know CYFD is so busy, law enforcement is so busy. And not to say that our advocates are not busy, that is really not it. But advocates have the opportunity to create that relationship at the initial forensic interview, to really say, I'm here for you, I'm going to follow up with you. Advocates within CACs are expected to reach out to families within 2 weeks of the initial forensic interview, and then every month thereafter for the life of the case. And that's part of a accreditation process that we go through. And so it's best practices. And so that advocate is really going to create a relationship with that family, with that non-offending family member or family in general. We'll see, who's a part of that process. So we really want to utilize that advocate to the best of our ability. Check in with them, see if they can reach out to the family. Are they talking with them? What are they saying? How are things going? Are they in therapy? That is going to be one of the best ways to help avoid recantation from a child, is really supporting the child and their non-offending caregiver in this whole process, because we know that this is a long, difficult process. If we're looking at prosecution of a case, that can be a couple years out, right? What does that look like for a family? What does it look like for their financial means? What does it look like for their housing? And that advocate can really be a person that can support them. There's also other advocates that we can lean into, right? Our DA advocates, our advocates. There's some advocates within, I'm thinking of SANE, if there's some SANE programs have advocates. Other advocates within the systems that we can really try to support families in a way that they feel heard, that they feel supported, and that they can lean into whenever they need something. I have been a part of, a lot of cases, and it's interesting to me when I hear an advocate say, there's one advocate that I've worked with for 27 years. We've been together the whole time, and families will reach out to her years later. They remember her. They don't remember the forensic interviewer. They may not remember CYFD or law enforcement. Sorry, guys. But they remember the advocates. And that's because they spend time with them, just really being present and trying to hear them out. And then they call them, in 2 weeks. And then they call them in a month. And they keep calling them until the family says, no, we're good. We don't need any more. But families remember advocates. So rely on them to really support your case. So if you have a recantation, what you would need to do is start the process all over again, unfortunately. So there's basically a new investigation. We interview the person to whom the child recanted. We want to get all the information about the recantation. Has there been contact between the alleged and the child? We have a recantation interview with the same forensic interviewer and the same advocate if possible. So if I were the interviewer on the case and now the child is recanting, I'm hopefully going to be able to be available to be able to do that recantation interview. So I can say to a child, hey, it's so nice to see you again. Like, how have you been? How have things been going? The last time we talked about things that had happened with your dad, what's happened since then? And we'll see where that goes. So we already have somewhat of a relationship, so that the interviewer, or myself, I could be like, what's going on? How have things been? How are you feeling since the last time we talked? Now you're saying that this didn't happen. Tell me about what made you decide to say it did. So we can see if we can get down to really what is going on within this case. Is this a true recantation where a child is saying this did not happen? Is that, and really in all of my interviews, I have never had a case where a child has said that. I have had cases where children have made things up, but I have never had a situation where a child comes to me and said in a recantation interview, yeah, I made it up, I was lying about it. So we want to keep the interviewer and the advocate, if we can utilize the same people that were part of the first interview and advocacy session, part of the next one. And is there any evidence of victim or witness tampering? And so we know all that. How much are people interfering in this process? What are families saying to the child? the contact with the accused, is that happening? We want to really pay attention to all of that. So, of course, we're going to take a look at, are there false allegations or alternative explanations for what's going on? That's just the nature of the work that we do, right? Whether you're a forensic interviewer, you're law enforcement, you're CYFD, we always want to be able to look at alternative hypotheses. We want to review the initial documentation and see, like, what kind of information did we have at the beginning? Was it pretty strong? Was it, I don't know where we're going with this. What kind of information did we have from the get-go? Does the caregiver or family believe the child? We talked about how significant that is. What were the circumstances after the disclosure? And was there influence by others? So things to look for during the forensic interview. So you want to pay attention to the child. What kind of gestures? Are they talking about things that are sexually advanced for a 3-year-old? Should they not know those kinds of things? Are they talking about things that are, it's hard to measure that now with cell phones, I must say, and the access that kids have to that. So, we might have said back in the day, 8 or 9-year-olds, you shouldn't know this stuff, but now it's a whole different world. So we have to just pay attention to access and what kids may or may not know sexually. Did they, in their first interview, disclose details about abuse that you would not know if they had not experienced it? Does that make sense? So if kids are talking about things that happened, that they saw, that they could smell, that they could taste, if they're making actions that look like sexually involved actions, then if they're moving their hand like they're, masturbating somebody, then how do they know that kind of information? So you want to go back to that initial information that you have and say, look, this was very strong information. We need to continue with this and see what happened along the way to cause this recantation. Did the child have a motive to fabricate? And I always hear, the whole cell phone thing. Oh, well, she was mad because dad took her cell phone away. Well, there are a lot of explanations for that. There's a lot of research in regards to the pressure cooker effect that, especially for teenagers or older kids, but then teenagers, where it just builds up and builds up. You're holding something in for so long, you're not talking about it, you're not telling what's happening. You've been wanting to tell somebody about your dad touching you, and then all of a sudden he takes his phone away and you say something about what he's been doing. So people think, oh yeah, it's because he took your phone away, not because what was happening was happening. So just something to think about when we think about motive to fabricate. Does the child correct the interviewer? So within the forensic interview, one of the rules that we say to children is, please correct me if you tell me something and I get it wrong. And if the child corrects you, like, oh, no, it didn't happen in that room, it happened in this room, then that really leads us to believe that this child has experienced this and wants us to understand that, no, it wasn't this, it was that. And if there's spontaneous details or disclosure, especially for little ones, when littler ones are just spontaneously disclosing about things. So the forensic interview never stands alone. Of course, there's medical evidence, there should be corroborating evidence, and there's witness statements. So this is a process. It takes all of us to be a part of it. It takes all of us to talk about recantation and the possibility, and if it has happened, us as a team, as an MDT, what are we doing as far as moving forward with a recantation investigation? So, oh, did you pass these out? Thank you. I don't know where we're at time-wise. I promise you don't have to do a role play. Not for everybody, just, I know you really wanted to do a role play before lunch. I promise for those of you who have received these, it is just to stand up and read a statement. It's just to stand up and read this. I got one more. What time is it? Oh, so we'll end a little bit early. It was probably about an hour. Right? Do you want to read it? Everyone's like trying to pass it off. I should make you stand up and sing it. A little entertainment, wake us all up. There you go. Mika's got it in the back. So in my career, I've heard a lot of things. And if you've heard something different, I would, or other things, I would appreciate you letting me know. But those of you who have cards, all I want you to do is just stand up and read it. Because if you think about being 8-year-old Maria, who has disclosed something, who is trying her best to be honest and hopefully have this behavior stop by whomever, then what happens when you hear things like this? You want to start, Angela?
If this is true, why didn't you tell me sooner?
Which is already said. Okay, you guys want to just go whoever has the next one?
There must have been some kind of misunderstanding.
Okay.
Well, you told me something different before. Now your story is changing. You don't really want the dad to go to jail, do you?
You were never alone with your dad. When would he have time to do this?
Who's heard that one?
You're just mad because you take your phone away, so now you're making this up.
Okay.
Are you sure it wasn't just a dream? This is just a bitter custody battle.
Do you really want to break up your family like this?
If this is true, then why do you still want to be around your dad? If this were true, shouldn't you hate your dad?
Well, he has never done anything like that to me.
CYD is going to take you away, and you will never see your family again. Your family is a pillar of this community, and your dad would never do this. Why are you lying?
I've known your dad for a long time, and he would never do something like this.
Well, did you keep pursuing or you over help?
What did you do to make your dad do this to you?
Well, you don't act like you've been abused.
Your story just doesn't make any sense.
Thank you. Those are all things that I've heard, certainly. I'm sure that you've heard those as well. In your yes, I see some nods. And so I want us all just to think about, the things that children are up against when we're really trying to get to the bottom of what's happening. We're trying to investigate a case, and the things that children have to deal with when they're trying to be honest about what's happened in their lives. So thank you all. I appreciate you. I know you're happy about no role play, so thank you. I appreciate being here with you all today, and enjoy your lunch.